If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button to never miss a scary story. If you are, be sure to click the notification bell and click the like button. Thank you. A girl, identified only by the initials JL, who was 18 at the time, was alone in her high school hallway when suddenly, the janitor, seemingly from nowhere, grabbed her and forced himself on her, then whispered in her ear, "You know I love you." You're watching Darkness Prevails, the best place to share your creepy stories with the world, because this world is a strange one. High school is creepy. There are so many people around, so there's basically always creeps at every age at any time. I mean creepy janitors, weird students, and suspicious teachers. It's a wonder any of us make it out alive. So hold on to your diploma. After hearing these allegedly true high school horror stories, you're going to be glad you never have to go back. If you want to be in a future video, I'm looking for creepy stories from Toys R Us. So send me your tales at darknessprevails.org/submit. Now then, let's hear even more reasons why school may make us miserable. Number 1. Drama Club Creep. Submitted by KaibaGirl17. It was my junior year of high school. I was taking drama as my elective for the spring semester, and we were all getting ready for the spring play. There was one boy in my class named Aaron. Aaron was new to the school, and rumors had it that he had come from a place for troubled children. As a victim of rumors myself, throughout high school, I don't pay much attention to them, so I thought I'd get to know him better. For the first few weeks, he seemed pretty cool. He always told me how pretty I was, and that he was glad he'd taken drama since it gave him a chance to meet me. Fast forward to a few months before summer break, we're rehearsing for the play. I was one of the female leads and Aaron was helping paint the backdrops. One afternoon while we were taking a break, I wanted to ask if he wanted to go get some snacks and soda with me. I saw him standing by the backdrop with paint all over his hands, and he was licking it. I remember feeling my face contort in confusion. What was he doing? I made my way over to him. I grabbed his wrist and asked what he was thinking, licking paint like that. And I kid you not, this is what he replied, with a dazed look in his eyes. "I wanted to see if brown paint tasted as much like chocolate as it looks. You want to try some?" He stuck his hand out toward me, and I shook my head. From there, I should have known things were going to get weirder. Whenever I was on stage with the others, Aaron would sit and watch. Whenever I spoke my lines, he would yell in a loud, obnoxious voice, "We can't hear you, speak up," despite knowing everyone could hear me. It was annoying, but I just thought he was trying to get attention from it, and I ignored him. Then he started throwing things at me. I reported him to our drama teacher, but she told me it wasn't that big of a deal. One day, a week or two after the play, which I ended up missing due to catching the flu, something happened that still haunts me to this day. Aaron and I were the only juniors in our class. All the others were seniors and had gone on their senior trip. Our teacher, Miss J, told us since it was just the three of us, she would buy us some sandwiches from Subway since our school allowed students and faculties to order lunch. She then left for the office. Aaron apologized for his past behavior over the last few weeks, and to make amends, he said he had been working on a costume that he wanted to show me backstage. There was one final play for the year, and I hoped to be in it. He said that this costume would be the perfect one to audition in. Keep in mind, I was a tad sheltered as a child, so even at the age of 16, I was innocent to the ways of people like this. What I'm saying is, I wasn't suspicious of this in the slightest. I followed Aaron backstage to the costume room. The second I entered the room and shut the door, Aaron shoved me against the wall, pinning me by my arms, and he pressed himself up against me. I tried to push him off, but he was 5'9" and 170 pounds, compared to my 5'4" at 130. "We're going to do something together," he whispered to me, "and you're going to like it." My eyes widened, and I tried to scream. He shoved his hand on my mouth and said, "You're not going to make a sound," and he grinned. He sounded so sure of himself. At that moment, I can't explain it, but I lost it. Biting his hand and my mouth being freed, I screamed, "No!" slamming my knee into him. Aaron cried out and fell to his knees as I squirmed free. "I said no!" I shouted over and over and over as I raced from the room and through the halls, wanting anyone and everyone to hear me. As I ran for the office, I saw Miss J. "Where are you going?" she demanded. "I'm not going back there," I screamed at her. After I told the principal everything that had happened, he took my word for it. Aaron was not only arrested, but expelled. To this day, I wonder how I could have been so stupid. Everyone has repeatedly assured me it was not my fault, and that I was lucky that I knew to fight. After that incident, I never saw Aaron again, and he'd be smart not to show his face to me anymore. Number 2. My ex tried to end me. Submitted by Trey. This happened when I was 17 years old. I grew up in Texas, specifically Brazoria County, and I was a junior in high school. I was one of those socially awkward types of people. That school year, I had the first period lunch, so one day during lunch, I noticed a girl at the end of one of the tables. She never sat with anybody, and I noticed that no one ever talked to her. I don't know why, but I felt inclined to talk to her. Maybe I felt bad for her, or maybe I could empathize with her situation. Anyway, I went over to her table and introduced myself, and we began talking. Her name was apparently Kelly, and her mother worked in the school kitchen. Kelly was quite beautiful. She was 5'6" and very slim. After a while, I asked if she had minded me sitting down with her, but she just smiled and said it was okay. We talked for the remaining 20 minutes of our lunch period. Then we began sitting together and talking a few days after that. And soon, she asked me if I wanted to go out with her. My brain went 100 miles per hour. I said yes. We made plans later for that day. Kelly was a senior, so I thought it was kinda cool to date someone a year older than me. We ended up going to the movies around 7:30 p.m. About halfway through the movie, she began putting her hand on me, which was okay with me, by the way. Keep in mind that at the moment, there were people all around us in the movie theater, and this was the first time we had ever gone out like this. So when Kelly suddenly grabbed me inappropriately out of nowhere, not even trying to be subtle about it, it took me by surprise and I pushed her hand away from me. I mean, of course I was attracted to her, but this was our first date, and we were in public. There were already people looking at us funny from that. But, oh boy, Kelly did not like that I pushed her away. Not one bit. When I looked her in the face, her eyes were filled with rage and hatred. I'd never seen anyone look like that before, and it scared me. In the middle of the theater, during the movie, she stood bolt upright, and she screamed at me at the top of her lungs. "So what? Am I not pretty enough for you?" I tried to get her to calm down. She was making a scene, and the 40 people around us trying to enjoy the movie were no longer watching the movie. They were watching us. But Kelly didn't even blink. She never took her eyes off of me. At that moment, I don't think I ever saw her breathe either. This chick was psycho. I pulled her out of the theater. Out in the corridor, she still wasn't calming down. Then, suddenly, she stormed out of the building after saying she needed to get something from her car. I was left bewildered and confused. I took the opportunity to go to the bathroom. I used one of the stalls to pee and kind of think for a moment. I've never been a big fan of the urinals. Around that time, I heard Kelly's voice. She was in the men's bathroom now, and she was somehow angrier than before. "No one treats me like this," she said. And then I heard a metallic clicking sound, or maybe it was more of a snap. I peered through the crack of the stall door, and I saw that she was holding a knife in her hand. I double-checked the lock, then I backed away from the stall door. Her footsteps came closer until I could see her shoes at the bottom of the stall. As she began to fiddle and rattle with the lock, I saw it slowly coming open. In only a few seconds' time, the door would open wide, and I'd be trapped in a corner, only a few feet between me and a psycho with a knife. That's when I heard another voice. Miss, this is the men's restroom." It was a guy, older, and he sounded bigger than me at least. "I'm gonna have to ask you to leave." There was another snap, and finally, she exited the bathroom. I opened the stall door, and I saw that it was one of the employees of the theater, coming in to wash his hands. I told him what he had just walked in on, and I explained everything that had happened, and that people may be in danger, specifically me. He reported the incident to his boss. His boss pulled me aside and told me that he saw the girl exit the building, and that multiple employees saw her with a knife. Luckily, I never heard from Kelly again, and I didn't see her back at school either. So, a pretty girl with horrible insecurity and anger issues, I never want to see you again. Number 3. High School. Submitted by Abby R. I was 15, severely depressed, staying in a residential psych facility for mental health. I wasn't like the other girls and boys at this treatment facility. I was quiet, shy, kept to myself. The other kids were loud and violent and had to be kept from other people because they would either fight someone or try to hurt them with whatever they could get their hands on. In this facility, you had to go to school in the same building you lived in. In my classroom, there were 4 girls, including myself, and 11 boys. The boys were all very violent and talked to themselves and were very paranoid. There was a guy named Jordan who I really liked, though. He didn't seem like the other boys. He seemed to be more like me, quiet, shy, reserved. We talked whenever we got the chance, because the boys and girls weren't allowed to interact until breaks or lunchtime. Well, Jordan and I started talking every day. He was sweet, funny, and caring, or so I thought. He and I even began dating after a few weeks of getting to know each other. And that's when everything changed. Jordan became aggressive towards me when nobody was around. He would verbally insult me and make me feel terrible. It got to the point where he began to stalk me as well. One night in October of 2016, I was allowed to go around campus by myself and have some alone time for an hour and a half. After about 20 minutes of walking around campus, Jordan came out from behind a building and blocked my walkway. I asked what he thought he was doing and politely asked him to move so I could go on my way, but he refused. He then flat out accused me of cheating on him with my roommate, who was a girl, and I didn't swing that way, so I denied his accusations. I didn't cheat on him, not even once. He pulled me behind the building and dragged me into the woods near the campus by my hair. Remember, I'm very quiet, so even then, I didn't want to scream. Just thinking about it made me feel embarrassed. But I did begin to beg and cry to let me go home. But oddly enough, what I was thinking was I'd be in trouble if I was out too late. And I'm the kind of girl who is really good in school, and I try to be a role model. As he pulled me further into the woods, he came to a stop. He pulled me up off the ground and asked me why I was there. I said I had no idea, sniffling and wiping tears from my face. What kind of person does something like this? He said I had sinned because I had a relationship with another girl, and because I had cheated. I swore to him that I never did, and I told him I don't like girls that way. He went behind a tree, then pulled out something. Jordan had been planning this. There was rope behind that tree. He shoved me to the ground and tied my wrists together, then tied me to the trunk of the tree. That's when I truly got scared. He was calling me the worst names while walking in circles around the tree. When he pulled out a knife from his back pocket, I finally had the courage to scream. Screaming for help, screaming for him to let me go, saying that I wouldn't tell anyone about this. But he said you can't trust sinners, and that they'll sin and sin again until they get what's coming to them. He walked up in front of me, lowered himself to my height on the ground. He began to raise his knife as he said, "I'm sorry, but I have to do this." I screamed again, and just before the metal touched my skin, there was a flash of white and a few loud grunts. A staff member had tackled Jordan to the ground. He managed to pin Jordan down. Then he radioed 2 other staff members, who arrived in no time and escorted Jordan away. The staff member who had rescued me untied me from the tree, gently undid my wrists. While explaining to me what had happened, he said the staff had begun searching for me, stating that I had never been late to anything, and that me not showing up somewhere at the right time was enough for them to go searching. And luckily, I had screamed right when the staff member had been walking by. He made it to me before I got hurt. As for Jordan, he ended up getting sent to a high-security psych ward far away, and from what I hear, he's going to be there for a very long time. It turns out he was in treatment for paranoia and unhealthy obsessions. I wasn't his first taken victim. He had taken another girl before he was sent away, and had done the same thing that he did to me. They ended up dropping the criminal charges, giving him a sentence instead that involved mental help. I was soon discharged by my parents, and I'm back home now, but the damage has been done. Ever since, I've been unable to walk alone outside anymore, and I haven't dated anyone since. I think I'm going to be single for a while. You see, I find it nearly impossible to trust another person anymore. If I had a message to share, it would be to stay cautious while walking alone, and never blindly trust someone who you've only been dating for a short while. Number 4. My First Boyfriend. Submitted by Lay. It was the end of my sophomore year of high school, and I was going through a phase. You see, I was a stereotypical good girl. No drinking or anything of the sort. Leader of school clubs, an athlete. You get the picture. I basically just went to school, then practiced and worked on the weekends. But then I started seeing this guy. Isn't that how all these stories start? Meeting someone crazy. I thought he was really smart, and I kind of ignored all the red flags that he showed. He had liked me for 2 years apparently, and had been trying to get me to go out with him for nearly that long. I finally said yes to him one day, after a group of our friends hung out and watched movies at his place. The whole time, he was making unwanted advances. At one point, all of us were going upstairs. I tried to follow the group, but he grabbed me from behind, threw me onto the couch, and kissed me. I was so upset that I left crying in my best friend's car. I'm an idiot. That should have shown me who he was. But I was young, and that was the first time a guy had shown that much interest into me. So, due to my really low self-esteem, which I think he knew about, I took his irredeemable actions as a flattering gesture, and I said yes when he asked me out. I know, stupid. This was all happening during the time my parents were split up. I lived with my mother, who worked reliably long days. We also lived in the crappiest apartments in town and were completely broke. I didn't even have a bed, just a mattress on the floor. When we started dating, I had hours of free time that I did not want to spend there. So he would pick me up in his truck, and we'd hang out at his house. It started off fine, but he'd begin pressuring me to go to his room, just to cuddle, he'd say. I refused. I should have ended it right there and told him to take me home. But I didn't. He picked me up and carried me to his room, where he slammed me on his bed and started to take off my clothes. I tried to make a run for it, but he was quick to get in my way. He smiled at me, freaking smiled. I could tell he thought this was a game, that no matter how much I denied his advances, it only made him more excited. I tried to get past him again, but he was stronger than me. There was nothing else I could do. Afterwards, he left the room for a bit, and when he came in, he didn't understand why I was so sad and crying. But I stayed with him because I thought that he was the only guy I could get. So that was my life for the next few months. To try to cover the pain, I started drinking, smoking, trying to find as many vices as I could to cover up the guilt I felt. Eventually, my parents got back together at the beginning of my junior year. We all moved into a pretty big house, and we had money again. Things were looking up, but my boyfriend was still as manipulative and blamed me for most of his problems. He would control who I was friends with, what I wore, where I went. He even broke up with me a few times because I was talking to people I shouldn't be, or didn't give him enough attention. But he was my whole world at the time, and I didn't want him to leave. I gave him that power over me, and I began to think that everything was actually my fault. Everything really fell apart when he and I were hanging out with a friend of his at his house. He took me upstairs again, but this time his friend followed. He wanted to watch us, and my boyfriend wanted to let him. I finally lost it. Everything I'd been feeling, suppressing, it just exploded. He had never seen me so angry, and he made his friend leave. After we were done, we all went back downstairs to chill, but his friend kept eyeing me the whole time. I was uncomfortable, and I made that known to my boyfriend. He suggested that we all go outside and smoke so I could loosen up a bit. We came back in, and his friend pinned me face down on the couch. I screamed and cried, and tried to get him off of me, but I couldn't. My boyfriend's living room downstairs had a small guest room attached to it, and the worst part was that the closet doors were mirrors. I could see myself being helpless in the mirrors, and it made it all the more worse and horrifying. They eventually took me home past my curfew, and I of course got in trouble with my parents. I cried myself to sleep, and in the following months I became a terrible and depressed person, smoking more, skipping class and practice, acting terrible to my parents and anyone I met. They stole my smile from me, and I generally didn't care about life anymore. Eventually, he finally broke up with me, and for the last time, and I had never felt more free. I finally walked away from my first and most toxic relationship. I'm 18 now, a couple of months away from graduation. Unfortunately, I see him and his friend all too often at school. I can't seem to go anywhere without reliving my biggest nightmares, but I look forward to leaving and going off to college, so I'll never have to see either of them again. I'm happy to say and know that despite the power they thought they had over me, they never broke my spirit. I'm going to accomplish my dreams, be happy, truly happy, while they wallow in guilt, toxicity, and fade away in a nihilistic lifestyle. And number 5, the weird guy at my cousin's high school. Submitted by DALTON. This story happened to my cousin, and it's from her point of view. She's in college now, but it happened when she was a sophomore in high school. Here goes. One day I was walking down the hall to my third period class when I saw these people picking on this kid named Chad. I only barely knew Chad. He was a good kid though, and had we known each other better, I would have easily called him my friend. So, as any decent person would do, I came up to them, stood between them and Chad, telling them to stop being cruel, to treat other people with respect. This only triggered them to make fun of me as well, until I threatened to report them to the principal. Then they finally rolled their eyes and left. Chad thanked me, and I asked him if he wanted to go get food after school. We met up after school that day, had a nice talk, and ate together. He asked if he could come over the next day. I told him I'd have to okay it with my mom. The next day, as I pulled into my driveway, I saw Chad standing in front of my door ringing the doorbell. I was mad, but he saw me and came to me to give me a note and a package. The note said simply, "You will forever be my love," and in the package was a single rose. This was bizarre and out of nowhere, and completely creeped me out, especially as he'd never been to my house before, and I had no idea how he found my house. Over the next few months, we actually did start dating, and I was convinced that his gift that day was less creepy now and more romantic. But then Chad started doing some weird things, like kissing me when I told him not to, and pushing me into his basement, as if he was trying to corner me to have his way with me. A few months later, before anything could happen, I broke it off with him. I had basically slammed my front door in his face. A while after that, I began dating a guy named Ty. But one day Ty called me asking me why this guy was banging on his front door and cursing at him. From the description of the guy, I realized it was Chad. Chad was very angry that I had been dating Ty and had followed him home to know where he lived, and was now trying to confront him. Eventually, after being unable to get inside Ty's house, he left. But the next week, Chad never showed up to school. I thought it was strange, but I didn't care too much. I had moved on from him. But then I learned that Chad was in the hospital because he jumped off the roof of his house, citing his reason for doing so being me dating Ty. Chad was just a not-so-there guy. So Chad, you have to move on. I have, and hopefully you can get some well-needed help. Graduation day is like the Underground Railroad of high school. Finally, freedom. Finally, an escape from all the weirdos and creeps you were surrounded by. Now, as an adult, you get to be surrounded by more creeps, with no teachers or student resource officers to protect you. What, did you think it was going to get easier? No. School was just easy mode. Welcome to chaos mode. Everything's twice as expensive, twice as difficult, and you only get half the experience points. Oh, and everything's out to get you. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to send me your creepy Toys R Us stories at darknessprevails.org/submit. If you want to support my channel for free, download my app at darknessprevails.org/app called Spooked. It gets you all my content in one place. Or donate just $1 a month at patreon.com/darknessprevails, and you'll get your name in the credits at the end of these videos. If you've got a little bit more, think about purchasing some merchandise at morbidmonsters.com. We've got shirts, mugs, and more featuring your favorite monsters. As always, here are my 5 favorite early comments from the previous full video, which in this case was about my 3 personal scary stories, so be sure to go back and tune in if you haven't heard it. Brendan Wilkinson says, "You turn any bad day at work into a good one, so thank you." From one Brendan to another, I appreciate the support, and I sincerely hope that one day you have a career you enjoy. That's what it's all about. Joel Kitzmiller says, "My Toys R Us is going out of business since you said Toys R Us stories." Oh yes, I believe all of them are going out of business, I think. Which makes Toys R Us ripe with plenty of creepy confessions and stories. It's Ms. Hyde says, "Yay, did you get a new mic? I've gone through 3 different mics since making that old video. Because any good entertainer always invests in himself. I'm telling you, only half my money goes into Snickers and Funyuns." Ever Applewhite says, "If you were a color, you'd be my favorite." Oh, that's clever. If I were a color, it would be I ate too much Taco Bell and I'm in the bathroom green, like my eyes. And Rosa Hood says, "I love your accent in this." Thank you. I actually have no idea where it went. I think I subconsciously suppress it when I'm doing these videos now. But back then it was just all out in the open. Yuck. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in to another video. I appreciate every last one of you. Even you, strange person who only comes to dislike my video but still gives me a view. I love you something fierce. I'll be back soon, everyone. Until then, stay safe out there and stay creepy.